Jamal Carter, a 38-year-old father of two, carried himself with a quiet resilience that spoke volumes more than any words ever could. Standing at 6 feet with broad shoulders and calloused hands from years of working construction, he had the physique of someone used to hard work. His dark brown skin gleamed under the sun, and the lines etched around his eyes hinted at both laughter and long days of worry. Jamal's smile, though not always frequent, lit up his face and revealed a warmth that made people feel at ease. His deep voice carried a calm authority, and his steady gaze often held an underlying softness, especially when looking at his children. As a single father since the passing of his wife 3 years ago, Jamal's world revolved around his kids. Malik, a curious and energetic 8-year-old, and Amara, his 6-year-old daughter whose quiet demeanor mirrored her father's, but whose eyes sparkled with curiosity. Jamal balanced the roles of provider, protector, and nurturer with unwavering dedication. His love for his children was evident in everything he did, from the carefully packed lunches to the bedtime stories he sometimes fell asleep telling. Though naturally reserved, Jamal had an undeniable presence in his neighborhood. Many saw him as dependable, the guy you called when your car wouldn't start or when you needed an extra pair of hands for a project. Yet beneath that reliability was a man who carried the weight of grief and the pressure of providing a better future for his children. Jamal's quiet evenings often found him reflecting on his wife's final words. Make sure they have a childhood worth remembering. Those words echoed through his every decision, fueling his desire to create something lasting, not just for Malik and Amara, but for every child in the community. Daily routine. Jamal's days began before the first hints of sunrise streaked the sky. At 5 a.m., his alarm's soft chime pulled him from sleep, and he'd start with a quick stretch before tiptoeing to the kitchen to brew coffee. The rich aroma filled the modest 2-bedroom apartment he and the kids called home. His mornings were a flurry of activity, preparing breakfast, packing school lunches with careful notes tucked inside. Make today awesome, or I'm proud of you. And making sure Malik didn't forget his homework and Amara wore her favorite pink headband. By 7 a.m., they were out the door, Jamal dropping the kids at their school with a hug and a promise. Be good. Learn something new. Then it was straight to the construction site where he worked as a foreman. His days were physically demanding, lifting heavy beams, supervising teams, and solving on-the-fly problems. Despite the exhaustion that came with the job, Jamal never complained. Work was a means to an end, a way to provide and keep his promises. Evenings were sacred. After picking up the kids, Jamal would prepare dinner, usually simple meals like spaghetti or grilled chicken. They'd sit around the worn wooden table, sharing stories from their day. Laughter often echoed through the small apartment as Malik animatedly recounted playground adventures and Amara softly shared drawings she made at school. After baths and homework checks, bedtime was a ritual filled with whispered stories under the dim glow of a bedside lamp. But once the kids were asleep, Jamal's exhaustion gave way to quiet contemplation. He'd sit on the threadbare couch, scrolling through local news or budgeting bills, his mind often drifting to thoughts of the neighborhood's lack of safe play spaces. The empty lot down the street always weighed on him, its potential nagging at the edges of his thoughts. Setting description. Jamal lived in Willow Creek, a neighborhood nestled on the city's outskirts, a place both vibrant and weary. Streets lined with aging brick buildings bore the marks of time, faded paint, cracked sidewalks, and potholes that cars cautiously navigated. Yet, for all its wear, Willow Creek pulsed with life. Kids played hopscotch on the sidewalks, local vendors sold hot dogs and snow cones on corners, and music, sometimes smooth jazz, other times booming hip-hop, floated through the air from passing cars and open windows. Despite its sense of community, Willow Creek was not without struggles. Economic hardships were evident. Shuttered storefronts stood as reminders of better days, and city maintenance often overlooked the neighborhood. Trash bins overflowed after weekends, and streetlights flickered unreliably. Still, there was a raw beauty in how neighbors looked out for one another, a network of shared experiences and mutual respect. A block from Jamal's apartment lay an overgrown lot, enclosed by a rusting chain-link fence. Once the site of a small playground decades ago, it now sat in neglect. Tall weeds claimed the space, and remnants of old swings swayed gently in the breeze. their chains creaking a haunting melody. Rusted metal, broken glass, and discarded bottles marred what should have been a haven for children. Parents warned their kids to stay away, fearing injuries from the debris or worse encounters in the isolated spot. Jamal passed it daily, the sight gnawing at him. He could vividly recall Malik's disappointment when he first asked, "Why don't we have a playground like the other neighborhoods?" The community center 2 blocks away provided some activities, but space was limited and budget cuts meant fewer programs. Most kids resorted to playing in the streets, dodging cars and filling the air with the sound of bouncing basketballs and shouted warnings. For Jamal, seeing children, especially his own, forced to play in unsafe areas ignited a mix of sadness and resolve. Willow Creek deserved better. The children deserved better. Yet, the gap between wanting change and making it happen felt like a chasm too wide to cross. Still, every time he glanced at that empty lot, he didn't just see decay, he saw possibility. It was a blank canvas begging for a vision, for someone willing to put in the work. Jamal often found himself lingering by the fence, imagining swings gleaming under the sun, slides echoing with laughter, and kids running freely, their faces alight with joy, foreshadowing conflict. Yet, with every hopeful thought came a nagging voice of doubt. Jamal had considered the idea before, reviving the lot, building a playground, but the obstacles felt overwhelming. Money was tight. His savings barely covered emergencies. Time was scarce between work and parenting. And then there was the red tape, the permits, the approvals. He wasn't naive. He knew the city's bureaucracy wouldn't make it easy. Worse still was the fear of failure. What if he started and couldn't finish? What if the community didn't support him? Jamal prided himself on being reliable. The last thing he wanted was to become the guy with a dream too big to realize. His wife's words echoed again. Make sure they have a childhood worth remembering. He wanted to honor that promise. But what if he let everyone down? Despite the swirling doubts, a spark had been lit. One that wouldn't extinguish easily. He didn't know how, and he certainly didn't know when, but as he watched Malik and Amara play with sticks and rocks on the sidewalk that evening, something solidified inside him. They deserve more. And maybe, just maybe, he could be the one to make it happen. The incident. It was an ordinary Wednesday afternoon when everything changed. Jamal had just picked up Malik and Amara from school. They walked home beneath a sky brushed with golden hues, the sun beginning its slow descent. The kids chatted animatedly about their day. Malik boasted about scoring a goal in recess soccer, and Amara proudly displayed a drawing she'd made of their family. As they turned the corner near the lot, Malik paused. "Dad, can we play here?" he asked, pointing at the weed-ridden expanse. His hopeful expression tugged at Jamal's heart. Before he could answer, a commotion drew their attention. Across the lot, a group of kids, no older than 10, were playing tag. Their laughter echoed through the empty space until a sharp cry shattered the moment. One boy had tripped over a hidden piece of debris, falling hard. Jamal's instincts kicked in. He sprinted across the lot, Malik and Amara trailing behind. Reaching the boy, Jamal saw a deep gash on his knee, blood seeping through torn jeans. The child, holding back tears, looked up at him. Jamal gently inspected the wound, his construction knowledge helping him remain calm. He tore a strip from his work shirt to create a makeshift bandage. "Where's your mom, kid?" Jamal asked. "Down the street," the boy sniffled. "She said just to play here 'cause there's nowhere else." That hit Jamal like a punch to the gut. After helping the boy to his feet, he escorted him home, where a worried mother thanked him profusely. Walking back, Jamal's mind raced. How many times had kids gotten hurt playing in that lot? How many parents, like him, felt trapped by the lack of safe spaces? That incident wasn't just a wake-up call, it was the final push. As they reached their apartment, Malik looked up. "Dad, if you built stuff at work, can't you build a playground?" Jamal paused, the question hanging in the air. His son's words stirred something deep inside. Could he? Protagonist's reaction. That night, after tucking the kids into bed, Jamal sat at the kitchen table, his fingers drumming a restless rhythm on the wood. Malik's question replayed in his mind like a stuck record. Can't you build a playground? On paper, it seemed impossible. He barely had enough time to breathe between work and parenting. And yet, he opened his laptop, the glow casting his face in soft blue light. Typing, "How to build a community playground." He was met with a flood of information, permits, funding options, design plans. His stomach twisted at the complexity. Grants? Fundraisers? City council approvals? The weight of it all felt suffocating. Jamal leaned back, rubbing his face. What if I fail? Doubt whispered in his ear, but then images of the injured boy flashed in his mind, followed by Malik and Amara's disappointed glances at the empty lot. He remembered the neighborhood's kids playing in the streets, dodging cars. Someone has to do something, he thought. Why not me? Fueled by equal parts frustration and determination, he pulled out a notebook. Ideas began to flow, design sketches, a list of materials, names of local businesses that might help. His construction experience gave him an edge. He knew how to build, how to organize a team. The bigger hurdle was convincing others to believe in the vision. Glancing at the clock, 12:17 a.m., he sighed. Exhaustion tugged at him, but something else overpowered it. Resolve. This wouldn't be easy. It might take months, even a year. But for his kids, for the community, it's worth it. Closing his laptop, Jamal whispered to himself, let's make this happen. Impact on routine. The following days saw Jamal's routine shift dramatically. Mornings still began early, but now, after dropping the kids off at school, he squeezed in calls to the city's parks and recreation department. His lunch breaks, once a brief respite, became strategy sessions, poring over zoning laws and permit requirements while wolfing down sandwiches. His evenings, after homework checks and bedtime stories, stretched long into the night with research, outreach emails, and budget calculations. Sleep became a luxury. Fatigue weighed on him at the construction site, but his coworkers noticed the spark in his eyes. Man, what's got you so wired? One asked. Jamal grinned, sharing his vision. Some nodded in support, others chuckled, skeptical. Good luck with all that red tape, someone muttered. Malik and Amara, sensing the change, asked questions during dinner. When's the playground gonna be ready? Malik beamed with excitement, while Amara quietly colored designs of slides and swings. Jamal smiled but tempered expectations. It'll take time, baby. Gotta do it right. The biggest disruption came when Jamal approached the local community board. Their monthly meeting was packed, a mix of concerned parents, local business owners, and longtime residents. Taking a deep breath, Jamal presented his plan. He spoke from the heart, about the injured boy, about the empty lot's potential, about giving kids a safe place to play. When he finished, the room was quiet. Then murmurs began. Some expressed enthusiasm, others raised concerns. Funding, liability, upkeep. Who's going to pay for it? One man asked bluntly. Jamal swallowed hard. I'll find a way. Walking home afterward, he felt both uplifted and overwhelmed. The ball was rolling, but the road ahead was steep. No turning back now, he thought. Determination burning brighter than ever. Escalation events. Jamal's early momentum soon met a wall of obstacles. The first blow came from the city's zoning office. You'll need a land use permit, the clerk said flatly, sliding a thick stack of paperwork across the counter. And an environmental impact assessment. It's standard procedure. Jamal's heart sank. The legal jargon was overwhelming, and deadlines loomed. Undeterred, he reached out to local businesses for donations. Some responded with polite declines, others with silence. One afternoon, he walked into Cornerstone Bank, hopeful for sponsorship. The branch manager, a man in a tailored suit, listened briefly before shaking his head. We appreciate community initiatives, but our budget's allocated elsewhere. The dismissal stung. Worse was the backlash from a few community members. At the next neighborhood meeting, a heated argument erupted. Why waste money on a playground? Barked Mr. Reynolds, a longtime resident. We've got bigger problems: crime, unemployment. Priorities, people. His words sparked murmurs of agreement. Frustration mounting, Jamal tried rallying volunteers. A weekend cleanup was scheduled, but only 5 people showed: 3 parents, a teenager, and Mrs. Jenkins, the elderly neighbor known for her sharp tongue. Well, she huffed, hands on hips, better a small crew than none. Then came the vandalism. Returning to the lot one morning, Jamal found graffiti scrawled across the fence. Waste of time. His jaw clenched, anger simmering beneath disappointment. He scrubbed at the paint, arms aching, but the words lingered in his mind. At home, fatigue seeped into everything. Dinners grew quieter, Malik's excitement waning. Is it really going to happen, Dad? The boy asked one night. Jamal forced a smile. Yeah, buddy, it will. But as he lay in bed later, doubts crept in. Was he fighting a losing battle? Still, each setback only hardened his resolve. I started this for them, he reminded himself. I won't stop now. Secondary characters. As challenges mounted, unexpected allies emerged. Mrs. Jenkins, despite her reputation for complaining, became a surprising source of support. You've got guts, kid, she told Jamal after a cleanup day. I've lived here 40 years. Nobody's tried half as hard as you. Need me to talk sense into these folks? I will. True to her word, she rallied her senior friends, their combined influence swaying skeptical residents. Then there was Elena Rivera, a local teacher and single mother of two. She approached Jamal after a community meeting, eyes alight with determination. I can help with fundraising, she offered. I've organized school events, car washes, bake sales, you name it. Together, they launched grassroots efforts, kids and parents alike pitching in. Malik and Amara also played their part. Malik handed out flyers with a beaming smile, while Amara drew colorful posters reading, "Help build our playground." Their enthusiasm was contagious, slowly melting resistance. Even Jamal's co-workers pitched in. Marcus, his site partner, donated spare lumber, and Tony, a skilled welder, volunteered weekends for construction. Not all reactions were positive. Mr. Reynolds remained staunchly opposed, grumbling at every opportunity. Mark my words, he warned, this'll end in disappointment. Yet, despite the negativity, support grew. Jamal found solace in those who believed. People like Mrs. Jenkins and Elena, whose unwavering commitment matched his own. Late one evening, while reviewing expenses with Elena, Jamal sighed. Didn't think it'd be this hard. She smiled. Change never is. But look around. You're making it happen. Her words struck a chord. He wasn't alone. This was bigger than him. It was about community, resilience, and hope. Protagonist's inner struggle. Despite outward progress, Jamal's internal battle raged. Exhaustion clung to him like a shadow, each day a juggling act between work, parenthood, and the project. Nights blurred into early mornings, coffee replacing sleep. His body ached, patience frayed. Malik's school calls went unanswered. Amara's bedtime stories shortened or skipped. Guilt gnawed at him. What kind of father sacrifices time with his kids for this? Doubts seeped deeper after an especially grueling day. Heavy rain had flooded the lot, washing away hours of labor. Jamal stood in the mud, soaked and defeated. Elena approached, umbrella shielding her from the downpour. We'll fix it, she said gently. But he shook his head. Feels like everything's working against me. Driving home that night, he gripped the wheel tighter than necessary. Malik's earlier words echoed. Is it really going to happen? What if the answer was no? Quitting tempted him. No more stress, no more disappointment. Just a return to normalcy. But the image of that injured boy haunted him, as did memories of his own childhood longing for safe spaces. If I don't do this, who will? Stress began affecting his job. Marcus pulled him aside one morning. Bro, you're off your game. Dropped materials, missed calls. You good? Jamal forced a nod, but the weight was undeniable. His supervisor, less understanding, warned, get your head straight or risk losing this job. Panic flared. Without his paycheck, how could he support Malik and Amara? That night, after putting the kids to bed, Jamal sat alone, head in hands. The apartment was silent save for the hum of the fridge. His reflection in the window revealed a man worn thin, eyes bloodshot, shoulders sagging. I wanted to build a playground, not lose myself. Yet, amid the turmoil, a spark remained. Memories of Malik's laughter, Amara's bright eyes, and the community's slow but steady support kindled something deeper. It's not just about a playground, he realized. It's about showing my kids that when you believe in something, you fight for it. Breathing deeply, Jamal whispered, one day at a time. Foreshadowing climax. As spring edged closer, a breakthrough seemed imminent. A local news station, tipped off by Elena, expressed interest in covering the story. Jamal hesitated at first. He wasn't one for the spotlight, but agreed. The segment aired that weekend, featuring footage of cleanup efforts, kids holding handmade signs, and interviews with residents. Support surged. Donations trickled in, followed by offers from local businesses, discounted materials, volunteer crews. Hope bloomed, but so did scrutiny. Online comments varied. Praise mixed with skepticism and thinly veiled racism. One post read, "Another handout project doomed to fail." Jamal clenched his jaw reading it, but refused to engage. Focus on the goal, he reminded himself. Then, just as momentum peaked, a letter arrived. A cease and desist from a property developer claiming ownership of the lot. Jamal's heart plummeted. The playground dream now faced legal jeopardy. Standing at the edge of the lot that evening, dusk painting the sky in lavender hues, Jamal felt the weight of impending confrontation. This is it, he thought. Everything comes down to what happens next. Turning point. The cease and desist letter sat on Jamal's kitchen table like a weight pressing down on his chest. The legal jargon blurred before his eyes, but the message was clear. Cease construction immediately or face legal consequences. Malik and Amara ate breakfast nearby, unaware of the turmoil brewing within their father. Jamal rubbed his temples, exhaustion and frustration threatening to overwhelm him. He called Elena, voice tight with stress. "They're saying we can't build. I thought the lot was city-owned." She paused. "Let me dig into it. There has to be a mistake." Hours later, she called back with news. Unsettling but clarifying. A private developer bought the property 6 months ago, planning luxury condos. The paperwork just cleared. That's why they're stopping us. Luxury condos? In their neighborhood? Rage boiled beneath Jamal's exhaustion. "They don't care about the kids," he muttered. Elena sighed. "Not unless we make them." Fueled by a mix of anger and determination, Jamal decided to fight. He reached out to a local advocacy group that specialized in community rights. Together, they organized a town hall meeting. The gymnasium filled with neighbors, local press, and, surprisingly, the developer's representative, a man in an expensive suit named Richard Barnes. Taking the microphone, Jamal's voice resonated with emotion. "We're not just fighting for a playground. We're fighting for our kids' future. They deserve a safe place to play, to grow. You want condos? Fine. But not at the cost of our community." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Barnes adjusted his tie, face impassive. "This is business," he replied. "We acquired the land legally." Mrs. Jenkins stood, voice sharp. "Legality doesn't make it right, Sonny." Laughter and applause followed. Jamal's gaze swept the room, landing on Malik, who smiled proudly. "This is bigger than me," he realized. "It's about standing up when it matters most." The twist. Just when things seemed bleak, an unexpected ally emerged. The local news segment had caught the attention of Councilwoman Denise Harper, a longtime advocate for underrepresented communities. She contacted Jamal directly. "I've seen the work you're doing. Let's meet." At City Hall, Harper explained, "Barnes may own the land, but there's a clause in his contract requiring community engagement before development." He bypassed it. A glimmer of hope ignited. "We can challenge the permit," she added. Days turned into a flurry of petitions, media interviews, and public rallies. Social media buzzed with hashtags like #SaveOurPlayground and #CommunityOverCondos. What started as Jamal's personal mission transformed into a full-blown movement. Then, the unexpected happened. Barnes requested a private meeting. Jamal entered the conference room, wary. Barnes sighed, folding his hands. "Look, I didn't expect this backlash. We're not villains. We saw an investment opportunity." Jamal's jaw tightened. "This isn't just land. It's our home." Barnes leaned back. "What if we find a compromise? A pocket park alongside the development. We handle construction, you handle community outreach." It wasn't ideal, but it was something. Jamal considered the offer. Building condos wasn't preventable, but saving part of the land was. Is compromise defeat? He wondered. Or a step forward? After consulting Elena, Mrs. Jenkins, and others, Jamal agreed. "We'll take it, but the playground stays a priority." Barnes nodded. "Deal." Emotional impact. The announcement sparked mixed reactions. Some residents celebrated, others felt betrayed. Mr. Reynolds scoffed. "So we get a tiny park next to luxury apartments? Sellout move." The words stung, but Jamal stood firm. "We fought for what we could, and we got it." Construction resumed, this time with developer resources speeding the process. Bright swings, slides, and climbing structures took shape. Malik and Amara's excitement reignited. One evening, as Jamal tightened bolts on a swing set, Malik hugged him from behind. "You did it, Dad." Emotion swelled in Jamal's chest. "We did it, buddy." Opening day arrived beneath a sky painted with sunshine. Families gathered, laughter echoing as kids raced to the equipment. Mrs. Jenkins wiped away tears. "Didn't think I'd see the day," she whispered. Elena smiled. This is what community looks like." Councilwoman Harper addressed the crowd. "This playground stands as a testament to resilience and unity." Jamal was pulled forward, cheeks flushing. "I didn't do this alone," he said. "This is for our kids, for Malik, for Amara, for every child who deserves joy." Later, as Malik swung high, legs kicking at the clouds, Jamal sat on a bench, watching. All the sleepless nights, the doubts, worth it. His gaze drifted to the condos rising nearby, a reminder of compromise, but his heart swelled with pride. We fought. We won something real. Healing actions. In the weeks following the playground's grand opening, Jamal focused on mending the areas of his life that had been stretched thin during the project. Malik and Amara had been patient beyond their years, and he wanted to show his gratitude. He took them to their favorite ice cream shop, a treat long overdue. Sitting at a corner table, Malik grinned with a double scoop of chocolate while Amara's face was smeared with strawberry syrup. "Best day ever," Malik declared, and Jamal chuckled, warmth blooming in his chest. He also reached out to Marcus at work. "Hey, man," Jamal began one morning, approaching cautiously. "Thanks for covering for me during all this. I know I've been distracted." Marcus grinned. "No worries, bro. You did something amazing out there." Their handshake turned into a brotherly hug, tension melting away. Mrs. Jenkins, true to form, showed up at Jamal's apartment with a casserole. "You've earned a proper meal," she insisted, waving off his protests. Jamal welcomed her inside, grateful beyond words. Conversations flowed easily, laughter filling the space that had once been heavy with stress. He didn't forget about the skeptics either. Spotting Mr. Reynolds at the local grocery store, Jamal approached him. "No hard feelings," he offered. The older man sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Didn't think you'd pull it off, but you proved me wrong, son." They shook hands, mutual respect blossoming where resentment had once lingered. These small acts of connection reminded Jamal that healing wasn't just about physical spaces. It was about rebuilding relationships and community bonds. Piece by piece, life settled into a new, better rhythm. Positive change. The playground quickly became a hub of activity and joy. Children's laughter echoed through the neighborhood, a melody Jamal never tired of hearing. Parents gathered on benches, sharing stories while keeping an eye on their kids. Elena organized weekend reading sessions under the large oak tree by the swings, her voice carrying as children huddled around. Mrs. Jenkins started a community gardening project near the playground's edge, turning what was once debris-filled land into rows of vibrant flowers and vegetables. Jamal noticed a shift within himself, too. The weight that had pressed on his shoulders for months lifted, replaced by a quiet pride. His mornings were brighter, his steps lighter. Where he once saw obstacles, he now saw possibilities. Malik's schoolwork improved, his confidence soaring. "We learned about heroes in class," Malik shared one evening. "And I told them about you, Dad." Jamal's throat tightened, eyes glistening. "Thanks, buddy. That means a lot." Even his relationship with Amara deepened. They spent afternoons at the playground, her laughter ringing out as she climbed and slid. Sitting on the bench, Jamal watched her, heart full. This is what it was all for, he thought. The community, once fragmented, now felt like a family. Neighbors who rarely spoke before exchanged smiles and greetings. Block parties were planned, and local businesses offered sponsorships for future improvements. What began as a personal mission had blossomed into lasting, positive change for everyone. Final reflection. One quiet evening, long after the sun had dipped below the horizon, Jamal sat alone on a playground bench. The equipment glistened under the glow of streetlights, the area peaceful now that the day's excitement had faded. He leaned back, gazing at the stars peeking through the dark sky. His mind drifted back to the beginning. The skepticism, the hurdles, the moments when giving up seemed easier. But I didn't quit, he thought. We didn't quit. The journey had been anything but easy, yet the rewards surpassed every hardship. Malik's pride, Amara's laughter, the community's renewed spirit. All of it was worth every sleepless night, every obstacle faced. Sometimes, he mused, change starts with one person daring to believe something better is possible. He had set out to build a playground, but ended up creating something far more profound. A symbol of resilience, hope, and the power of community. As a cool breeze rustled the leaves, Jamal closed his eyes, breathing in the serenity. This isn't just a playground, he thought. It's a promise to my kids, to this neighborhood, to myself. And that promise had been kept. Symbolic ending. The following weekend, Jamal stood beside Malik and Amara at the playground's entrance. A fresh sign gleamed above them. Hope Park, built by the community, for the community. Children raced past, their joy infectious. Amara tugged his hand. Come play, Daddy. Laughing, Jamal followed them, sneakers crunching on the soft mulch. He pushed Malik on the swings, the boys soaring higher with each push. Look, Dad, I'm flying, Malik shouted, face radiant. Amara zoomed down the slide, arms raised in triumph. Around them, families picnicked, teens shot hoops at the nearby court, and elderly neighbors strolled along the new walking path. Life pulsed through the space once forgotten. Jamal paused, taking it all in. The playground wasn't just equipment and paint. It was a heartbeat, a gathering place, a testament to what people could achieve when they united. Turning toward the entrance, he noticed Mr. Reynolds helping Mrs. Jenkins plant flowers, a sight he never thought he'd see. As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden hue over the scene, Jamal whispered, "We did good." Malik grinned, hopping off the swing. "No, Dad, we did great." And with that, Jamal joined his children, their laughter echoing into the warm evening air, a melody of hope and new beginnings. Did this story inspire you? Jamal's journey shows the power of perseverance, community, and believing in a brighter future. If you found hope in his story, imagine what we can achieve together in our own neighborhoods. Let's keep the conversation going. Like, share, and subscribe for more uplifting stories of everyday heroes making extraordinary changes. Have a community hero of your own to celebrate? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear it. Together, we can make a difference.